Well, folks, we got some breaking news today. You've been following the story about the firing of a prominent statesman in the MAGA movement who was vice president of the Kennedy Center. And the firing was for comments he made years ago at a Christian Q&A session where he was being asked, why is it that we don't have influence in Washington with family values, though we send our Congress people up there? It doesn't seem like in the schools, the textbooks, and the pro-life agenda, that it stalls. And then he brought the House down with an inside report of what really is the makeup of Washington, D.C. And that was what done him in. We've got an interesting show. We're going to hear the story about Floyd Brown and what took place with his experience running into a mafia of a different sort that is still live and working in Washington. You want to go to lancewallnau.com/counterpunch to get Floyd's book, because his book describes what was going to happen in the future. Literally, the book was written, and then he took this job, and his story is in a sense, echoed in Counterpunch, how we battle the left in the ongoing fight for America's sanity. Go to lancewallnau.com/counterpunch, and now let's get into today's show. All right, let's deal with the breaking news right now. It's the Lance Wallnau Show. I got my wing woman, wing man.
Wing person.
Wing person.
Wing they.
Wing, yeah, whatever the gender language is. Anyway, Mercedes Sparks is right here in the studio with me today. But I'm shocked, folks. I just went up to Washington last week. Mm-hmm. And I went through D.C. I was meeting with, in the various, West Wing, Eisenhower Building, meeting with different people. And I go over to the Kennedy Center because I'm so fascinated with the work of, one of the guys, Floyd Brown's role was like vice president of development or something last week. And I wanted to go drop in and see him. The guy's a real hero to the MAGA base. I mean, we got a group that is 50% of evangelicals and pro-life Catholics that put Trump in office. And Floyd is a guy, I like his bio. Someone sent me, they said he's 6'6" in stature, and that's also matches the size of his profile in our community, because he's one of the few men that is a strong believer that comes from the Reagan era. And he began his career as a young political operative in the 1980 presidential campaign of Ronald Reagan, joined the staff of United States Senate Majority Leader Bob Dole, and has been part of that Washington, and yet somehow maintained that, I guess, what's the word for it? He kept his spirit clean the whole time. He was able to function in the swamp and never get swampy, never sell out his Christian values, never become jaded, never just try to make the money play. And I actually was hearing about him. I think it was back when the Reagan Ranch was being managed by him. But he was running the Washington, what was the name? Western Journal. Mm-hmm. And I was reading, I don't know if you remember this. Most of you guys don't remember this. But during the 2016 election, man, there were some people's like Net Daily and the Western Journal, they were ubiquitous. They were everywhere in the news feed. They had billions of hits. And I know for a fact that what the left did, what the Soros machine does, and the Soros machine, in its own weird way, went after this man that's going to be my guest on right now. And they destroyed the Western Journal off of Facebook. They took conservative Christian voices off. We were canceled. There was no cry, no voice that was representing us. Well, things turned around with Donald Trump coming into office. Floyd Brown as one of the key guys and vice president over there at the Kennedy Center, which Bannon said on a broadcast. He really awakened me. He said, whoa, the Kennedy Center, that's high church for the left. I mean, that's their cathedral. And then I think about it. Yeah, that's where they market their culture. So what Trump was upset with was the drag shows, the drag queen, the open Capital Pride, World Pride 2025 Alliance, which was promoting bubbles, lollipops, and show tunes with your favorite drag queens, reaching out to kids. And Trump said, stop it, right in his own backyard. He wanted to put something wholesome, commercially viable, and he put this guy, he put Rick Grenell in charge. And normally Rick Grenell could be relied upon to deal with complex foreign policy challenges like Venezuela and North Korea. I'm not, this is me, nobody else talking. I think Rick really fumbled the ball on this one because my buddy Floyd here, I just walked through the Kennedy Center last week. Then I'm reading this. I was fired yesterday by Richard Grinnell from the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. 1 month ago, I was recruited. This is Floyd Brown's tweet, X post. I was recruited to join the Kennedy Center as a vice president. My firing came approximately 2 hours after CNN sent an email asking me to comment on my past writings and statements about traditional marriage and the homosexual influence in the GOP. Well, here's the response I sent back to CNN. And first of all, why are our evangelical representatives serving in Trump's cabinet having to answer to CNN and having CNN determine policy for Donald Trump on who he has working for him? That's forgive me. It's an honor to work at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and with many amazing people who are employed here, Floyd responded to CNN. Comments rooted in my personal Christian views, which I have made in the past, have no impact upon my work here at the Kennedy Center, nor do they impinge on my interactions with colleagues who do incredible work for the patrons of the center. As a Christian, I am called to work with others of different beliefs and worldviews. I'm honored to work for President of the Kennedy Center, Ambassador Richard Grinnell, and Chairman of the Kennedy Center, President Donald Trump. I am united with them in their mission to bring wholesome entertainment, showcasing the best of performing arts and music to America. It was truly not my intention to offend anyone with my comments. I never intended to attack or demean any person in my statements, and have always shared the mission of Jesus, striving to love others unconditionally, as all Christians would say in this position. The amazing beauty of the MAGA movement, oh my gosh, listen to this, people. The amazing beauty of the MAGA movement is that we have people of many different beliefs inside our tent. We're working together in unity to make America great again. So, this is the whole, I didn't realize that you had said this also. CNN also contacted Richard Grinnell, who is a professing Christian and is married to a male spouse. As anyone that has followed my X account knows, I am also a professing Christian. I'm at times outspoken on public policy, having authored 7 books, my latest being Counterpunch, an unlikely alliance of Americans fighting back for faith and freedom. I also frequently speak at churches and Christian conferences. I had met Richard Grinnell during my time as a political organizer in Arizona. I asked for an explanation of my dismissal, and I asked to speak to Richard Grinnell. Both of those requests have been ignored, which is Richard Grinnell's big mistake. Big mistake. That he did not just say, hey, brother, you call yourself a Christian? You guys are Christians? You call yourself Christians? Why don't you have a private discussion about how you can relate to each other, work together, and model the unity that is necessary that the MAGA movement does every day? Anyway, the only explanation is the one given to me at the time of my firing. Floyd, you must recant your belief in traditional marriage and your past statements on the topic, or you will be fired. Bow the knee is what that requires. Needless to say, I refuse to recant, was shown the door. My beliefs are much more common to biblical Christianity. My only conclusion is that Richard Grinnell was intimidated by a CNN story, which hasn't been aired or published, so he preemptively fired me for my Christian beliefs on marriage. I think he made a mistake because by preemptively firing you, he created a focus on the very thing that you were talking about. Can I bring on to the studio right now? Do we have him? George, we have Floyd Brown. Floyd,
Lance, it's great to be back with you, and it is always a pleasure because I know you fight so hard for President Trump. I try to fight every day for President Trump and for this MAGA agenda because our country is so important and it's so dear to us, and so. I want to do everything I can to help President Trump. And in fact, that's why I came to Washington. That's why I said yes when they hired me at the Kennedy Center. And that's why I worked so hard over the course of the last few years to help President Trump and the entire MAGA team win back the Senate, win back the House, and of course, put President Donald Trump 47 back in the Oval Office. And I'm very grateful for those victories and frankly wanted to be a part of the solution to restore America to the greatness that I know it can be part of. And I still believe President Trump is restoring the greatness of America. I'm just a little disappointed that I'm not going to have a direct role in that.
No, and I'm disappointed. The reason you're not having a direct role is because you're a Christian who has an opinion that evidently doesn't flatter the position of other parts of our movement who are openly homosexual. And we can work with them, as we do, but they cannot work with us. It's the weird thing about cancel culture is you have to deny. We're not making them deny anything, but they're making us deny our faith. We have to say, you have to make a statement that disavows, oh, I was totally wrong. Well, no, if you're biblical, you're not totally wrong, but you could still coexist, work together synergistically. We do it all the time. But in this case, there was an axe to grind from a reporter who, if I get this guy's background correctly, I think he's got 4 or 5 scalps he's already taken down. And they do an AI analysis of everything you've ever said at any time. I get hit with it all the time. It's like, well, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, you made this comment about the dangers of Islam. And it's like, yeah, all right, 7 years ago. It's amazing. We're going to give an account for every word that we speak at the judgment seat of Jesus and evidently at the seat of Soros's left-wing anarchy machine, holding us accountable for every opinion we got that is not popular public opinion. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, but we're going to be right back. Don't go anywhere. We got an interesting part 2.
Have you ever wondered if someone was monitoring you, like nefarious tech companies, corrupt federal agencies, or hostile foreign countries? Newsflash, they are. The deep state, big tech, and China are tracking your every move and using it against you. Up until now, you've been powerless to stop it. However, Titanium Secure has cracked the code with post-quantum encryption, and we control the entire ecosystem, end to end. Join Titanium Secure today and help us vanquish the enemies of free speech. Visit titaniumsecure.io and enter the promo code on your screen for a 25% discount on your subscription.
Welcome back. I'm here with Floyd Brown, and we're discussing the big rumble going on right now at the Kennedy Center. Mercedes, what do you have to say about this? You've got the video clip, don't you?
Yeah, we do have the clip, Floyd. You were telling us today that they actually played this info on CNN. So let's hear the clip that took Floyd Brown down.
This is it. Let me just say this. We got 4,000 people in Ocala, Florida. Mario Murillo and I are doing our thing called Fire and Glory. It was revival meetings, actually, mobilizing the populist MAGA base. As I said, we're like 40% of the Republican Party, and it's 73 million votes. It's about 40 million votes. It's a strange group to want to offend like this with firing our brother here. But here's it: we have the meeting, and then we have Q&A during the morning, because people want to know, how does this Washington work, and how do we get involved in election integrity? So Floyd is answering a question here, fielded on why is it that we have no influence in Washington when it comes. We send people to Washington that are pro-life. They run on a platform which is pro-family, and here we are, getting the schools are going down. They got pornography in the schools. Why are we not succeeding if we're actually sending this message to Washington? Why doesn't it go anywhere? And now Floyd, in this Q&A, gives an answer,
which I never talk about. So when I was on Capitol Hill, I worked in Republican staff. And what most people don't understand is that many of the Republican members have homosexual staff. And the reason that they do is because the homosexuals, usually, unlike me, I had 2 kids at home, I had a wife at home, I had responsibilities at home, and I needed to spend time with my children. And they don't. They didn't. They literally worked for the member 24/7 and then went out to Adams Morgan and had their gay sex and then came back to work the next day. And so inside the Republican Party, inside the RNC, I mean, it was President George W. Bush who appointed a chairman of the RNC who was openly homosexual. His name was Ken Melman, okay? And they went through the RNC and systematically filled it with homosexual staff. And that's why we never make any progress on family issues. You know, activists at the local level, we wonder why aren't our Republican members of Congress fighting for traditional marriage? Well, because they've got 3 staff members who are against it, and that impacts them. And it's a dirty little secret that nobody wants to share.
Well, now that secret's out. The secret, and so what you were basically describing something which I think is important for American voters to know, that there's a representation of interest in Washington for every group. That's all that you're talking about, and that there's perhaps a disproportionate representation, I would say, of the gay community.
Lance, first of all, I made those comments about 3 years ago, long before President Trump was chairman of the Kennedy Center and long before I accepted a position at the Kennedy Center. And so it really didn't have to do with my Kennedy Center job to what I said in the past at a Christian conference. But as I described in my tweet, they basically came to me and they said, you know, you need to disavow this. And, I think that I just described a situation that, and I just described it accurately. I wasn't going to disavow it. And I wasn't going to disavow any of my Christian beliefs around traditional marriage. So this video, triggered a lot of the people that work in the higher up levels of the Kennedy Center, and so it led to me being dismissed because of my beliefs, and I think that's wrong. I think I was doing the job, I was doing it well, and I was doing it because I love President Trump. I love the mission that he had set for the Kennedy Center, and I was more than willing to work closely with Ambassador Rick Grinnell and the others that were there in order to achieve that mission. And I didn't really care what,
Right, exactly. The point is you're a statesman and a Christian, and just like all of us, we can work with anyone because we love all people. We have a great sense of ambassadorial etiquette, that we don't bring things up. We don't needlessly or divisively bring up our differences in worldview, though clearly the Muslim world, not just evangelicals, the Catholic world, the Christian world, the Jewish world, has a unified, in a sense, theory of heterosexual marriage. But that doesn't mean that we can't exist and work together without having a food fight in the faculty lounge. And so I'm really disappointed. I'm just so disappointed at this.
Yeah, Lance, every day that I went to work there, I was praying for Ambassador Grinnell. I was praying for the staff of the Kennedy Center. I was praying circle prayers around the building. I was praying hedge of protection prayers. I have a hedge of protection prayer that I really I like to pray, and I knew from day one, because of the discernment given to me by the Holy Spirit as a believer, that I was contending in a spiritual battle, and that I was near the top of the mountain. I was near the gates.
Yes.
And I was contending with those spiritual powers at that gate. And I was doing it through prayer. And I think the closer that I got to the gate and the more Christians I brought in the door, the more Satan was pushing back against what I was doing, and I was greatly encouraged when you came up and I met with you and Mercedes a week ago, and you prayed for me in the building, and that was a very important milestone. And we were making real progress, not only in the natural, but in the spiritual. And so Satan counterattacked. And I really think that's the main reason that I was fired.
And what's unfortunate, I mean, it seems like, Floyd, you were essentially a DEI hire. I mean, if you are a Christian, you have a Christian worldview, and you said it publicly 3 years ago when asked, hey, why don't we see certain policies advance? Why is that happening? And you give an honest answer and say, this is what I lived. This is what I saw and experienced inside the Beltway. And that's one of those reasons that happens. It's just different policy, different availability, and it's just a practical answer. And it's just really unfortunate, like Lance is saying, we're willing to work with everybody, and I think about like the national motto, right, which is e pluribus unum, out of many, one, and that the MAGA tent, the Republican tent is very wide, very diverse, and we're all going to have different opinions on policy and what should be done. That doesn't mean you now exile the one Christian in the Kennedy Center. It's like, to Lance's point, it's very unfortunate it was handled the way that it was, because, I mean, why would your opinion not be included with all of the other plethora of opinions that are there?
And I wasn't the only Christian there, Mercedes. There are other Christians there. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they were praying with me, and they're still there. And I'm now contending in prayer every day for them. I believe that President Trump's victory created an opening. The main reason I took the job was because a year and a half ago, my wife put a sticky note on our microwave. And the sticky note basically read, when the breach comes, we all have to move in action and in unity. And so I believe that President Trump's election as the 47th president of the United States was that breach. And so all I wanted to do, all her and I wanted to do, was to be part of that action, to go into that breach and to do what we could to contend for the future of our nation. Because as we all know, for the last 4 years, an auto pen had been running our country. Mm-hmm. And America was at grave, grave risk. And so it's incumbent upon us to do what we can to save our nation. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was here. And that's why I came. I had to sacrifice a lot to come. And in fact, I signed a 12-month lease, of which I've paid 1 month's rent, which means I have 11 more months to go and no paycheck to pay it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, no, I'm telling you something. If there's a legitimate example of Executive Order 14202 in violation, the president on February 6th said, hey, it's come to my attention that there has been evidence of forms of anti-Christian bias and discrimination in federal agencies, blocking hires, causing allegations of discrimination to surface against Christians, and I am now signing an executive order, 14202, and authorizing Pam Bondi to personally be heading up this division to halt all forms of anti-Christian bias and discrimination within my federal agencies. And then April 22nd, Pam had her first meeting and with Kash Patel there and said, we're taking this seriously. In my opinion, this is a blatant example of how the left does their deep state research with the media that's in their pocket, flips it over to their deep state lackeys in government, even in our Trump administration, and targets the conservatives and the Christians that are vulnerable so that they can put a scalp on the wall and peel away Christian influence, conservative influence, and cohesiveness within the Trump administration. I believe this Executive Order 14202 is going to be the basis, potentially, of rectifying this mistreatment, because it's a disservice to you, to your reputation, and to you financially. By the way, you predicted, to an extent, this is the kind of thing that happens in your last book, Counterpunch, right? You have a book, Counterpunch, and true to your thesis, this is what happens. Mercedes, how would people get a hold of that book?
Sure. Yeah. If you wanted to get Floyd's book, I think I could get a link set up, probably lancewallnau.com/counterpunch. You can grab it there if you want. Support Floyd. He's jobless, could be homeless soon. I mean, so buy Floyd's book. It's probably also up on Amazon and any place you could probably buy books. But Counterpunch really outlines exactly what happened to Floyd in a lot of ways. So it's fascinating.
Well, Brother Floyd, appreciate you letting us have this exclusive opportunity to interview you about what happened. Arts and entertainment and government is the mountaintops that right now we're seeing the strong man does not like to see. Jesus on the top of those mountains. So somehow I believe we're going to be able to come through this, because the Trump administration wants to model how the MAGA movement can move with diversities of participants and without having to cancel each other like a bunch of leftists.
Lance, if I could just say one last thing before we end this broadcast, it would be, please pray for me, pray for my family, pray for Rick Grinnell, Ambassador Grinnell.
Amen.
And also think about what you can do where you're at in these type of situations. Counterpunch lays out a plan for everybody to take back their neighborhoods, their towns, their counties, their states. And it takes all of us working in unity. It's that unlikely alliance that I predicted in the headline. And frankly, the Kennedy Center was an unlikely alliance. We had a lot of different kinds of people there. But that's what America is, and that's what America's culture is. And that's why I was proud to work there. I was proud to work with Ambassador Grinnell, and why I wanted to talk with him. But, despite all that, it didn't end well. But I know Jesus has my back, and
well, it didn't end well so far. But that was about 24 hours ago, and you're in the middle of the storm, and that's understandable. But it ain't over yet, because the Apostle Paul talked about what had happened to him, and he said, "Hey, these things have fallen out rather under the furtherance of the gospel." I would like to see this incident become a force multiplier to protect Christians in public service in all parts of Washington. We certainly have as much right to be there as any other group, because we make up, some 29, 30% of the population and 40, 50% of the party that's in office. Well, that's it. I want to give you guys that update, and they can still follow you there, Floyd, at what's your Twitter handle there? At Floyd Brown? At Floyd Brown. Okay. We're going to keep tracking with you. We're going to have you back on again, brother. All right. No final thoughts, Mercedes?
No, I'm good. It's just I just feel real injustice. I was like, this really doesn't seem fair. And it's almost, it just makes me sad, because coming out of the election, you end up feeling like we're unified, we're moving forward. I'm sure there's plenty of things that Rick Grinnell and others would say that I don't agree with, but to see like the woke mob mentality catering to, like you're saying, the CNN article, it's like I would have loved to have seen us all stand together and say, you know what, we're not going to be divided. Floyd has a different worldview than me, but by golly, he's a great guy, and he's getting things done here at the Kennedy Center. And that was not the attitude. And it's just like friendly fire we just really don't need. And it's like the Bible talks about a house divided can't stand. And I would just say, like, within the movement right now that Trump's in office, we've got to be mindful of these things and discerning of them to say, no, we're not going to cater to the CNN, expose that they're about to drop. That no, Floyd's done a lot of good work here as he's been here. I mean, he took us on a tour and said, I did this. We had this great Beethoven symphony that came through. We're so excited about it. So it's just unfortunate to see friendly fire like that.
All they that live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. But look at the smile on his face. He's going to come through it. And we'll all come through this together. God bless you all. We'll see you again tomorrow for our ongoing updates as to what's happening with the movement, with Christian influence in Washington and around the world. God bless you.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have,